Video games are great. I think we can all agree on that. They can take us to far-off places, showing us sights that we could never dream of. They can tell stories that touch our hearts, tickle our souls, and spank our spirits. They can make us feel like heroes, or villains, or, never mind. But as good as modern games are, there is a special charm to retro games. Games from a simpler time with pixel-based graphics, simpler controls and game mechanics. Games made within the constraints of the old dusty hardware that they were designed for. But what happens when some cool nerds decide that they want to see what a particular modern game would look like if it was a retro game? That's right, we get retro demakes. And there has been a ton of really good ones made over the years by really creative, talented people who have managed to capture everything that's great about a particular modern game, strip away all the glitz and glamour, keep everything that makes it special, but remake it as a game from the ancient early days of gaming. And that's what we're going to talk about today on the Retro Roundtable. I've gathered the most noble and chivalrous nerdy knights to attend this roundtable discussion, and oh baby, have I got a star-studded cast for you today. We've got Mr. Sujano, Stubbs from Retro Handhelds, Retro Game Corps, Adin Walls, the Retro Tech Dad, the Phawx, Retro Breeze, Joey's Retro Handhelds, special guest Crystal is Cozy, and me, TechDweeb. Hello. I asked all these cool nerds this awesome question. If you could pick one modern game to get a retro-style demake, which would you choose? And you know how this goes. Since this is a roundtable, I don't want to pick favorites, so we turn to the Toque of randomness. Hey BMO, how you doing? Starting off with Retro Game Corps. Starting off with a bang today. Hey Russ.
Hey, it's you.
You said that way nicer than most people say that to me. Alright buddy, what sort of modern game do you want to see a retro demake of?
So I would love to see a demake of Hades, like a Super Nintendo or a Sega Genesis version of it, the same isometric kind of layout to it, and the same mechanics and whatnot, but being able to emulate it on low-powered systems would be amazing. I love playing this game, but it usually will require a handheld PC, or you can play it on the Switch, and so it does take a little bit more modern hardware. I'd love to be able to play it on just one of my cheap retro handhelds instead, and so I think that's the game I would want, is something that has like a nice roguelike loop to it, and Hades is probably my top choice for that.
Oh, solid choice. Yeah, I totally love to play Hades on my retro handhelds. I wonder what system that would be good on. Probably like Super Nintendo, but I could easily see like an original Game Boy version being lots of fun. Back in the hat we go. It's gonna be Retro Breeze. Hey Shem.
Good afternoon.
And to you, my friend. So, what do you think? What kind of retro demakes do you want to see?
If I could pick one modern game to get a retro demake, it would be Sonic Superstars. I know that's kind of weird because Superstars was like a modern remake of a retro game, but it just kind of missed all the marks it was supposed to hit for me. The game was just not very fun, it wasn't very memorable, and it just didn't have that magic that the retro Sonic games had. And that's especially when you put it next to Sonic Mania. Now I loved Sonic Mania, but I did feel like too many of the levels were reused, and I really wanted to see an entirely unique Sonic game in that style. And I think that since that was made by a third-party studio of fans, essentially, it was a really amazing revisitation of the old game. But Superstars made by Sonic Team just wasn't as good, it just didn't really have that same magic. So what I think Sonic Team should have done is to have gone back and made an actual retro 2D Sonic game, just to see if they could recapture some of that magic and then maybe apply it to a modern game in the future.
So you want to see a retro demake of a reboot of a retro game? I like your style. Next up, we have the one and only TechDweeb. I know that guy. Yeah, you do. Alright, Dweeb. Retro demake. What's it gonna be? And you better not say Crusader Kings 3. Hands down. This is it. This is the one I choose. No question. It's my desert island game, my forever game. I could just play it forever and never get bored. The experience of playing it is so different depending on how you start, which of the nearly infinite starting scenarios you can choose from or create for yourself. It has so many interesting mechanics, so many things going on. There's kingdom management, building and construction, politics, military strategy, role-playing mechanics, and it's a storytelling game. You raise your kids, fall in love, make friends and enemies. And here's the thing, modern Crusader Kings has 3D maps and frankly beautiful graphics, awesome illustrations and interface design, but honestly the core game is not like complex in a way that it needs to be demanding graphically. There's nothing in this game that would be lost if you took the core game and just redid it with simple art and graphics. You could maintain all the best parts, the political intrigue and the role-playing mechanics and the events and the strategy, and just pixelize it. I kind of picture it turning out like a Koei game on the Super Nintendo. Something like Gemfire or Romance of the Three Kingdoms, but with the modern game design and mechanics that they've figured out in the modern Crusader Kings games. The real question is, if they made this, would you ever stop playing? Yeah, it's probably best that I don't have access to a CK3 demake, because if I could play that on like my Miu Mini, I would literally never stop. Literally. The Magic Hat is telling me it's time to hear from Mr. Sujano. Hey, Suj.
Howdy.
Can I call you Suj? Yeah? Alright, good.
This one is a super easy one, well, provided we're allowed to cheat a little bit, because there's no way this game is fitting on a cartridge. And that's The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom in the style of A Link to the Past. I think the game would be absolutely amazing. I mean, Tears of the Kingdom is already pretty good, but you've got the sky, you've got the surface, you've got the depths. It's an open world game with a whole bunch of different shrines, a whole bunch of crap to do, people to meet, side quests coming out of your ears. I mean, you could sink so many hours into a game like that. I would enjoy playing that more than Tears of the Kingdom. I don't know about you, but I think that would be a perfect game to demake.
Honestly, any of the 3D Zelda games would make amazing demakes in the style of Link to the Past. It just goes to show you how well that game has held up over the years. It looks like Adin Walls is up next. Hi, Adin.
Hey.
Well, let's hear it, buddy. What kind of retro demakes are you keen on seeing?
A retro demake of a modern game that I would like to see, considering I'm just an all-in-all retro game and I only got into modern games in the last few years, I would say I've really been enjoying Fallout and I've enjoyed the show, and so I think it's a great time to see something made for like the Game Boy Advance, that kind of platform where the pixel arts was really good and the gameplay was really fun on a handheld. I'd love to see a Fallout 4 sort of RPG by taking the knowledge we have now of, first-person views and cinematic things, and then doing that on the Game Boy Advance. Because, the cutscenes for Metroid and all that were quite good on the Game Boy Advance. So I'd love someone to try to do that for Fallout.
Oh, totally. I mean, the original Fallout was from the DOS era, and you can play that on handhelds. So I guess there is sort of a retro-style version of Fallout that you can play. But something more streamlined and more controller-focused, like you said, with some comic-style cutscenes or something, that would be freaking sweet, man. You know what I was thinking? How good I am at picking names out of hats. Wouldn't you agree? Crystal, special guest Crystal is cozy. Hey, girl.
Hello, hello.
Thanks so much for being here and for telling us about the game you choose for a retro demake, of course.
It probably comes as a surprise to absolutely no one at all that my pick for this question is going to be Terraria. To be honest, I was tempted to pick Hades because I think a retro roguelite would be really fun to play on a handheld. But there's just something about Terraria that's special. There's a distinct lack of sandbox-style games in the retro gaming space. And I'd love to be able to chill and build a cool base and do some fishing or gardening on my Miu Mini Plus. And then when I'm down for some action, I can go poke a wall of flesh. It would be glorious.
Yeah, and Terraria is so close to a retro game already. I mean, it's 2D, pixel-based, side-scroller view, and you can play it on handhelds. You've almost got your dream demake already. And now, the nerd you've been waiting for, the Retro Tech Dad. Hey, Rob.
Hi.
Well, let's hear it, buddy. What sort of retro demake are you going to choose?
I think that's a really interesting question. When you think about how games that are modern today, how would they work? How would they have worked back in the day? And so giving them a demake. And, like one game that for some reason just came to my mind was Halo. And the funny thing is there actually is a Halo demake. There's a 2600 version of Halo, so I got to take that off my list. I think God of War might be an interesting one. It's a very popular modern game. It'd be cool to see how they would handle some of the storytelling elements, just the action and things like that. But it'd be cool to see God of War with the leveling up and the weapons and all that stuff. So I think that game would be kind of cool. I'm also curious to see how they would visually capture the style of God of War. And so I think in terms of a very modern and very popular game, I think God of War would be a really interesting choice.
Yeah, I saw that Halo demake. I mean, it's cool, but it doesn't scratch that Halo itch the same way, I think. But yeah, God of War, heck yeah. Sign me up for that any day. You know who we haven't heard from yet? This guy.
Hello everyone, my name is the Phawx.
Hey, the Phawx. Thanks for being here. Retro demake. Go.
If I could pick one modern game to get a retro style demake, which would you pick? You know, I'm gonna go, I would like it to change genres as well, but if I could get a demake, you know, I'd probably like to see something like an MMO get a demake, like having World of Warcraft demade is something that I think would be pretty interesting to see, and how that would be in scope and how they would accomplish it. But that's more just a super curiosity side of me that would like to see if that could be done and executed well enough. Like a World of Warcraft demade would be super, like an 8-bit style or whatever. That would be crazy to see. And I would really like to see how that would actually ultimately come to fruition.
Holy jeez. Yeah, World of Warcraft as a retro game would be nuts. I guess it would almost feel like maybe Warcraft 2 in terms of how it looks, the graphics and the style, but like as a multiplayer RPG. What a crazy idea. You're crazy like a fox.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's the one and only Joey. Hey, Joey.
Hey.
All right, buddy, let's hear it. What modern game do you want to see as a retro game?
I didn't think I had an answer for this. And then Persona 4 Golden, Persona 5 Royal, or Persona 3 Portable. Imagine any of those games in like a demake style Super Nintendo, Game Boy Advance, whatever you want to call it, way back when. Put them into that with the awesome music and convert it to like the Game Boy Advance style music or Super Nintendo. The soundtracks are already amazing. Imagine just putting it into a demake and just listening to those soundtracks in that style. I would absolutely love Persona style demakes for just retro style. On top of that, there are 2 games that are currently stuck on the Xbox 360 that I would love to have another way to play, even if it is a demake, and that's Lost Odyssey and Blue Dragon. If we could get a Lost Odyssey demake, I don't even care what style it is. You can make it into an NES style for all I care. It goes back once again to the turn-based style as well as the awesome music and all of that. And those are what make older retro games some of the best games that you could play. And if you take a newer game and just demake it to that, would be so much fun. So Persona, Lost Odyssey, Blue Dragon, those are my answers.
You know, I've never played a Persona game, so I'll have to take your word for it. Same thing with Lost Odyssey and Blue Dragon. But like, JRPGs have their roots as retro games, right? So it should be relatively straightforward to make a demake version. You might get your wish someday. And last but not least, never mind. It's Stubbs.
Hello.
I'm kidding. Everyone loves Stubbs, especially because of his awesome answers like...
This is modern, right? Fallout New Vegas, or maybe Fallout 4, Fallout 76. But the new Fallout games I've been getting back into because of the new TV series. And I think, especially New Vegas with its story and its progression, if that could be made into like a 8-bit demake, maybe a Pico 8 game, wouldn't that be cool? Wouldn't that be just... Yeah, that would be so awesome. I'd love to play that and get into Trouble in the Wastelands and New Vegas and maybe make it into a Game Boy Color game. Maybe that's the way.
I'm 100% with you. Pico 8. That's the one that I want to play. I would like to thank each and every one of these cool nerds for joining in this episode of the Retro Roundtable. I will have links to all these guys' and girls' channels in the doodad below. It was so cool to hear everyone's ideas for demakes. But, and that's a big but, I bet lots of you dweebs watching this have ideas of your own. So let's hear them. What modern game would make an amazing demake? And here's my promise to you. The answer that gets the most upvotes, I'll make a piece of concept art for it. I'll show you what it would look like in time for the next Retro Roundtable video. So let's hear your ideas and see those upvotes in the comments below. And you might as well click the subscribe button while you're down there, if you haven't yet, because we have one more episode in season 1 of the Retro Roundtable coming up, and I've already started work on the content for season 2, and it's gonna be a flippin' doozy. I can promise you that. But that's it from us for today. I'm your host, as always, the lovable, snuggleable TechDweeb. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.